Hey, what's going on, family? QL here. And listen, welcome back to another episode of At Home with QL. Today, we're having a real conversation with my dude, Terrell Carter. And yo, let me just tell you, Terrell has done so much from being a singer to an actor, a songwriter, and now he is the author of Problem Child. That's your brand new book that just came out. And Terrell, one thing I didn't know, man, as I was reading this book, you're from Buffalo, New York.
Born and raised, man.
How was that growing up in New York?
Growing up in New York, well, see, that's the difference. See, anytime you tell somebody I grew up in New York, they're like, "Oh my God, where Brooklyn, Queens?" I say, "No, Buffalo." They're like, "Oh yeah, Buffalo." So Buffalo is a little bit different, of course. And if anybody who hasn't been, Buffalo is more upstate. It's a lot slower. It's not like that. But it's Buffalo was a city that it was going through a lot. We had the steel mills and stuff like that back in the day. But then that all went out of business. So Buffalo had a recession before the country knew what the word was.
Makes sense. And then, so how do you get from Buffalo to now Los Angeles?
Man, it was a long little process, but I grew up with Stevie J, a little older than me, but he and I used to work together. And he was working for P. Diddy, and at the time, when I left Buffalo, I went to go sing with Fred Hammond in Radical for Christ, and so we were all on tour with Fred Hammond, Yolanda Adams, and Kirk Franklin, and the tour ended in New York City, and we were singing, and P. Diddy came to the concert, and Stevie was with him, and Kirk Franklin ended up calling me out to sing. And Stevie was like,
"So wait,
oh
you
my
used to
God,
sing with Kirk Franklin back in the day too?"
Well, I used to sing with Fred Hammond, but we were all on tour together. It was a big tour called the Tour of Life, which was Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond, and Yolanda Adams. And so Tam and David, who are Mr. Brown and Cora, were singing with Kirk at the time. So we all knew each other, 15 years ago. So, we've all known each other all that time. And Stevie was there, and he was like, "Oh man, listen, I'm doing my thing now. I'm under P. Diddy. I'm at the time it was Puff, and he was like, I'm producing and stuff, and I know would you come and be like a young writer, a young vocal producer? At the time I wasn't ready to be an artist. I just had so many things. I was a church boy completely. And he just took me basically from under that umbrella and started me to writing with him, and we came to LA to write for Quincy Jones under his label at the time. And man, it just kind of spent from there because they ended up going back to New York. Like I said, I wasn't that rough type. So at that time, Biggie had been killed and they was running all over. So Quincy Jones offered me a publishing deal and said that, he would give me X amount of dollars to just write songs. And I was like, this right here is an opportunity. So I stayed in LA, and I never did leave.
And one of the things that I recently read about you is that when you moved to LA, like you never went back to New York since the age of like 17 years old.
Ever. I've only been back 2 times. And I'll tell you, 2 times. The 2 times I was on Medea's class reunion, and I was on Meet the Browns. And that's the only times that I've gone back to Buffalo. For everybody who hasn't read the book, read the book and you'll totally understand.
And by the way, let me tell you, when I first started reading the book, I didn't realize I was going to have like a whole bottle of Jack Daniels, some Chick-fil-A lemonade, maybe some green on the side too. Listen, the book is crazy. I was telling one of my friends about it. I like the fact that it's so like it's taking you on a journey. You know what I mean? Like from like the first chapter, it kind of felt like I was there with you and your mom and your family and all that.
I know, and that's how I wanted to do it. I didn't want it to write a story, about my story or my mom's story and just tell you what happened. I wanted to write it in the first person. And I got the idea from, they just redid the Versace story. I don't know if you saw that. They did the Versace story. You've seen how Ryan Murphy made it to where you actually saw what happened. And, behind the scenes, we know the events, but we don't know the conversations he had. So with the events, they connected the conversations. And just like you could, if someone said, write a story about, one of your aunts and your mom having a conversation, you could sit down and say exactly what they would say, And so what I did was took all the events that happened in my life, all the stories that I've heard from 4 and 5 and 6 different people that were the same, and I created them based on the characters and how I knew my aunts and my uncles were. And it took you on that journey where you could really understand what was going on. But, the funny thing was, it took me on a journey that I had never expected. I saw these people from places that I didn't see them from before. When people that I couldn't forgive or people I had forgiven for me, I started forgiving them for themselves because I realized you were something else, or why you were who you were, and that changed a lot for me too.
So as you was like unpacking these childhood traumas and these stories, like was there ever a part in the process of writing the book where it was kind of difficult?
Oh no, the entire book was difficult. There's parts of it that's one thing about it, a friend of mine, she laughed and she was like, dude, your personality and who you are all of these people. I said, pretty much, in so many ways, the humor, the just the thoughts and, and everything. So the entire book was difficult. I wrote it from a place that's very humorous because my family, it was crazy. They said some of the most insane things. However, this is a heavy topic, and there was times I was in a coffee shop. I used to love to go to this one coffee shop, and I would go from 7 in the morning until 10 at night and just, have lunch and dinner there and everything. I was writing in there, and I broke down in the coffee shop so bad, and I was trying to hide it. And this lady walked up to me with her dog, and she was like, baby, I don't know what it is, but I'm here to tell you it's going to be okay. And I just looked up at the lady, and then she was already wiping the tears in my eye. And it was funny. She was an older little white lady, and she was wiping the tears in my eyes before I could even look over at her. And I'm thinking to myself, it took me off guard because I didn't realize. And then when she hugged me, I just broke down in front of everybody. And it was times when I wrote things about my father that I hadn't even dealt with and didn't realize that I didn't deal with it. My father, molested my mother. She was 11 years old, and she was special needs. She had one leg amputated at birth, and she was just like a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old. And my father was 23 years old, a 23-year-old strapping tall dude who was molesting this girl, and I realized how can you do this, man?
What felt different about your childhood that separated you from everyone else around you when you kind of like ultimately realized that, like something's different going on?
And it was just that. I was always so self-aware. At 7, 8, 9, as you see in the book, I remember, someone asking me later on, how did it feel having a mom like that? And not being anything like her, like, you're an intelligent man, and she was like, special needs baby, all of that. I said, it wasn't really that I wasn't like her. What blew my mind is I wasn't nothing like these mothers around me either. I was nothing like these people. I was just like, when is Ashton Kutcher coming out? This is like a joke to me because I couldn't believe that they thought the way that they did, and I could see right through it, So it just was my whole life. I was nothing like anyone around me.
As you wrote this book, what made you realize like, this is healing me too as I'm writing this book?
Well, because it was opening up things about me that I didn't even realize. It was showing me things about myself that I hadn't dealt with, that I thought I dealt with them. Yes, I feel like, honestly, I came out pretty good compared to what I could have come out with, because of the way that I was born and all that.
Beat the odds, for sure.
But however, man, I still didn't come out unscathed. There was times I couldn't have successful relationships. I couldn't have successful friendships. I didn't know the boundaries of love and what I should receive from people and how I should, I would just lose my mind if somebody said they loved me because nobody did when I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? There was times when I grew up around just my aunt, my grandmother and all of those people, but they can't teach you how to be a man. They can't teach you all those things, and I can love and adore and be kind to women, but at the same time, there were certain things that I was never taught or never was instilled in me. Like your father not being there. That's why it is a big deal for fathers to be there for their children, especially their sons and their daughters. They're teaching their daughters how a man is supposed to treat them and their sons how they're supposed to treat women. It's a big deal, man. And so there were so many things that my whole thing was just all over the place, and I did the best that I could. I knew right from wrong, but you don't have that constant practice of somebody saying, this is right. You don't do that shit. You don't do that. You don't do this. You don't do that. So that was the difference. Did it affect the way that I dealt with rejection? Absolutely. Even to this day, it's just real hard for me to, you grow up with no discipline, and so I disciplined myself. But however, you're still human. So when you're rejection, you don't take that well, or you're ready to fight. Everything I had to do was fight. And even if it was on a lower level, you would not. I was the type that, okay, you ain't gonna get me. I'm gonna get you before you get me. And and everything doesn't doesn't mean that, you know, everything. And sometimes it does. Don't get me wrong. You got people out there that are just doing, you know, but to me, it was just, it still is. And I try to fight against it, but it's my natural instinct. You know, if you lie to me or you do something shady that you don't have to do, it's a big deal. I'm like, you know what? You know what? First of all, you could have told me the truth. And now that I know that you lie, I don't know who I'm dealing with. Right. And for me, what people don't understand, and I'm not expecting them to, but if I'm in a relationship with you, I don't have any family left. All those people are dead. So when I meet someone, when I'm with you, I don't necessarily have to like rush things and we have to be together. I just need to know who and what I'm dealing with because the stakes are higher. When I meet friends, the stakes are higher. You know what I'm saying? I ain't just hanging out with people. Yeah. It's like I'm choosing great people in my life, and I'm also choosing to be great to them because the people that I didn't choose were not great people to me.
Makes sense. When you think about your childhood and like everything you went through emotionally, at what point in your life that you discovered, you know, I had a gift to sing, I had a gift to act, I had a gift, you know what I mean, to be above the average, if that makes sense?
Well, I never knew that I had a gift at all at first. Yeah. That was funny. I thought everyone could sing like this. So I would see
sing like that.
Stevie, no, absolutely. Because I would just listen to the radio and I thought that that's just where people go. And then everybody can go record their album if they want to. You know what I'm saying? So I would hear Stevie Wonder and like the Clark sisters. When I first heard Karen Clark Sheard, I just couldn't believe that somebody could do that kind of stuff with their voice. Like it blew me away. Like I just was like, everybody can do, because you see people all sing in church and you know they sing along. So I thought everyone could sing, and you just choose to be able to do the stuff you want to do. And I just thought people didn't want to do it, like the Stevie Wonder stuff. So when I heard people doing that, you know, I was just like, ooh, yeah. I was like, that's what I want to do.
Now, let me tell you, I was just talking to one of my friends about you, and don't take offense when I say this, but I believe like you were like the male Karen Clark Sheard, if that makes sense.
Oh no,
I was watching this one performance that you did. It was out in Miami. It was like a live performance, and yo, like the way you rocked that damn stage, and like the places you go vocally is just crazy. Like you like places that other men don't go. You know what I mean?
That's exactly once I realized that, you know, what God had given me, man. Yeah. And that's what it is. It's a gift because I took what I had and I said, I don't want to just sound like anyone else. However, what I loved about Karen Clark was that her daringness for one, but I said, I want to have that same aggressiveness. I don't want to sound like Chris Brown and Trey Songz and everybody, you know, and to be honest with you, I love all of them. Don't get me wrong, because I respect them for who they are, Mario and all those people. But like this over here was phenomenal to me. Yeah. And I was like, I want to have that same dynamic, but sound like a guy. Right. That don't sound like all these guys. Yeah. You know, and that's exactly how it was. It's like, I don't even think like that. I don't even think like that at all when I sing. I don't.
Did your voice like get you on the Tyler Perry stage? Like,
absolutely. That was bigger. That was I thank God that, you know, coming from where I came from, I really look back, and my grandmother, before she died, she says, do you realize that when I watched the Forrest Gump movie, it reminds me of you? And I said, what do you mean? She says, you realize how he was always in the right place at the right time for some of the most humongous things that would happen in culture and being with Tyler Perry. You know, I sang with Whitney Houston the day before she died, and then dating Jesse, you know, and Empire, like all of these things I was connected to. But going back to the Tyler Perry thing, there was a girl that played my wife in Medea's Class Reunion, and her name's Pam Taylor. She actually used to sing background for the Clark sisters. Yeah. And so when I was singing for Fred, living in Detroit, I ran into Pam Taylor because I had heard her sing on this J Moss album, Family and Friends, and she sang this song called Turn to Jesus, but she sounds so much like Karen. I was like, I want to meet this girl. Well, it was easy to meet her because, you know, doing vocals and stuff, and we became friends. Yeah. And so she actually got the job, doing Medea's Class Reunion, and I had never heard of Tyler Perry, never heard of none of that before, which was weird, but he was big already.
And I had never seen. You were staying in New York or Georgia?
I was in LA already.
Okay, LA, got you. All right, bet.
And I had never known any of the Tyler Perry plays, and I was done writing for Quincy. His company had closed, and I was just, you know, doing my thing, singing and doing what I do. Yeah. And at the time, they called me, and it's ironic because The same promoter that promoted the Tyler Perry plays was the same promoter that promoted Fred Hammond, Yolanda Adams, and Kirk Franklin when Tam and David, man, was on it. So, you know, it was very easy because Tamala and David was already on there. So when they called me and I came out there, I never forget, they flew me out. He asked me, he says, oh, you know, there's a play. And I used to want to do these plays back in the day when this other man who was huge before Tyler named Mike Matthews used to do I Need a Man and all these other plays. And, but they wouldn't let me go because at the time I was just too young. And so I said, well, yeah, I guess I'll do a play. And I told my grandmother at the time, May, who's in the book, I said, Mom, you know, I'm going to do this thing with this guy, Tyler Perry. She, oh my Jesus, Medea, you gonna do the Medeas? And I'm like, I didn't know who this was. I had never seen it. And being out in LA, I was just doing, you know, at the time I was singing on stuff for Glee or in other stuff, you know, and I just wasn't into that stuff. So I flew out there and I ran into Tam and David. They were all sitting at the table and I, you know, got there and then he says, Tyler asked me, he was like, you know, well, you look like I want you to look because he wanted, you know, a guy who could play a husband or a cheating boyfriend or anything like that. But he was like, but you got to be able to sing. And I need you to sing like that every night. And so I sang a little something and he was like, but I need you to take it on up. Can you do that or what? And then I did.
And what song did you sing?
What I sing? There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. So I sang that. And
what was his first word? Like, what did he say after that?
Well, he was just doing like, Tyler was just like, Tyler is insane. Tyler is hilarious, but he's a perfectionist and that's why he's where he is. But he just kept saying, and I stopped like that. And he was like sitting on the piano, I'll never forget, at this place that I thought was a school or a big hall. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, this is this man's home. I had never seen nothing that big. It was the same house in Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Really?
And that was his house. That was his first house. And when you pull up to that, it's so big. I've never seen nothing that big at that time. I mean, now, of course, it's different, but at that time I hadn't. So, you know, and it was a great moment, you know, and there were like 14 other guys sitting out, you know, people were just singing for stuff and trying to get another part or whatever. And so there was this little room and he says, come over here. And I walk out with him and I walk out to the, you know, where we were all sitting, all of the guys that were sitting. He says, I just want to introduce you guys to Terrell Carter. He's the guy that took y'all job. What? Slams the door and leaves me in there with all of the guys. And I look around.
I would have walked out like I knew I was a shit. I ain't even gonna lie to you.
Well,
humbly though.
First of all, I didn't know he was gonna do that.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was just going back. I thought they were all there for other stuff. You know, and this was even though I had worked with P. Diddy and all of these other people, this was still a different process. And this was taking me back to my roots, which were gospel music.
And talk about that first night being on stage. Like, take me back to that moment, that first night on stage with Tyler Perry.
Well, the first time on stage, I was just nervous that I was going to forget the line. I am the worst when it comes to remembering lines, even in the movies and everything. I had to just like, when I get auditions and they come in and now we have to self-tape at home and all of this, and I just be like, oh my God, I can't remember lines. So it was remembering the lines, but singing the song, I thought, I'm about to sing the song. I'm ready, you know, I'm ready. And the first few nights, I'll never forget when I sang, Tyler was like, you have a fantastic, phenomenal voice. He says, but do you realize that a 90-year-old woman could come out and sing this song and take them in and lean all back and do all of these different things? And he said she would get housed over you every night because the people are waiting for you to take them somewhere else besides here. And I was like, okay, and he says, when you're singing this, he says, you have to sing with conviction. You got to sing from a place that if it's the ABCs, you're reading that like you helped write them. And I was like, I get it. That night, he gave me the tips on what to do. And when I tell you, it changed my life forever. There's never a time. I've done a concert in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it was 20,000 women. It was me, Jennifer Hudson, Raheem Devine, all these other people. And I was thinking, you know, I'm the only one that maybe they don't know me. And, you know, and when I went out on that stage, man, and just those same tactics and tools, it destroyed the house. You know, it's online. Anybody want to see it? It's called Terrell Carter's Women Empowerment. But it just changed my life. And that's what it really was. So it took me from being this great singer to a performer. And I owe all of that to Tyler Perry.
And that's still a life lesson that you use to this day.
Oh no, that's why it don't matter where I go, where I'm gonna sing, who's first, who's second, and that's humbly saying it. It's just that this is what I do, and I know that once I come up there, you better have a great time before I come or after. I don't never fight over the stage of well who I want to be the headliner. Oh no, go ahead, I'll go first. It's always good.
Next time you're gonna do a concert, like I think you should do some type of virtual concert during this pandemic, for real. And
well, you know what? I was getting ready to do that. I got some new music coming out. I got new music like crazy because
by the way, I got Back to Love on my phone right now. Love this damn song.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I wanted to do something that took me back to that R&B's 90 with a little bit of a spin of today on it, that Back to Love kind of thing. But yeah, I got some other stuff coming out now that I can't wait. I got a song coming out. I don't know if it's going to be next month. I've worked with so many different producers and they're dropping these singles at different times. But I'm working with DJs as well now. So I'm kind of going into I did a house song that is house and R&B. So the R&B people won't get lost. But it's coming out for New Year's. It's called Hero. And we definitely need a hero with everything that's going on in 2020.
To us so we can play it on the radio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You definitely be the first to get a copy of it. And I'd like to break it there and have an exclusive of it right there.
Let's do it on 963 The Block. Now, Terrell, I got to ask you, because as you continue to expand your career, you're doing so much from songwriting to, music to films, but you also just reached a major milestone in your life, and that was releasing the Terrell Carter's hats and accessories.
This hat right here is the first hat that I'm going to be releasing. And the thing is, I wanted to release this because I lost a dear friend. I've lost a couple people, including my father. My father didn't die of breast cancer, but he died of cancer. But my friend, Kayla Parker, who we used to sing with Marvin Winans, and she had a group called Special Gift. She died of breast cancer, and she was a great, great vocalist. But however, I wanted to do the first hats that I released, the pink hats, in honor of Breast Cancer Month. But it's not just the flower, they get dressed up in any way. And the way, once you order them, you get a Zoom call with me and we talk about what it is you're looking for. Because like this purple one hat I have like a frog. I have some hats that are dressed up with flowers all around the whole line is going to come out. And it's not only just hot hats for like going out in church. It's gag hats. It's hats for costume, like Christmas hats with pine cones all around it. We will build whatever you want.
And what's their website to go check out those hats?
Well, for right now, the website is still being built, but right now you can buy these hats at tcarterpinkhat.eventbrite.com. That's tcarterpinkhat.eventbrite.com.
And you can also find that link at the bottom of the screen as well. Now, Terrell, listen, let me ask you, what advice would you give your younger self, like looking back over your career, all that you have done, and the things that you have came from, what advice would you give your younger self?
My advice would be, Terrell Carter, you were born to do this. Yeah. Terrell Carter, trust the process. Terrell Carter, remember the purpose. Terrell Carter, don't get lost in the sauce of other people. Don't be thinking that you're not good enough. Know that this is what you were born to do. And everything that happens is a footstool for you to step on. Things that you may think that were detrimental, things that you may think that would have destroyed you, have all turned out and worked out for your good. Just trust the process and let it happen.
Yeah,
that's the advice I would give myself and any other person that feels like that this is what they're supposed to be doing or whatever they're supposed to be doing.
I love your story, man. And it's so crazy because I feel like within this past year, you've had to unpack all these childhood traumas and things you have been through to tell to the world. And I feel like as Black men, we suffer in silence a lot of times.
Yes.
I was just talking about mental health with Mike Hill last week, which is so crazy. But
what
are you doing to help other Black men, find their way to their own wholeness as you did yourself? And you did that without having a father, without having a mother, with just a role model.
Well, what the good thing about it is I wouldn't trade my story, my origin, my cards for the world, because that is why I did this. And I haven't just started doing it now. I realized that I've always done whatever I wanted to do. Just throughout the years. Why do you do this, Terrell? Why do you like this person? Why do you only have this? Why do you hang around this? Are you dating this? Are you dating that? Or I'm doing whatever the hell I want to do. And I've always done that. And because, man, you have to. You know, a lady asked me, with the cards that you were dealt as a kid, how do you still have, you know, the wherewithal to be able to go on every day? How, with those cards, how do you make it through? I said, the hell with the cards I was dealt. Look at the cards I was left to play with. Yeah. It could have been a whole lot worse. I was like, God, I had to be the son of this situation. That had to be my mom. That was my father. Yeah, that was all bad. However, you made me this man who is 6'5", who can sing like this, who has all these talents, who you did that. So I'll always have compassion for people and never forget where I came from. Be able to stand alone. And I never really had anyone pushing me. So I'm able to stand alone, walk right in the middle of my enemies, and still say, you know what, sit next to me and let me tell y'all how it's gonna be for me today. It's just, I couldn't ask for anything else, man.
Wow, I love it. Terrell, The Problem Child is out right now. I love this book, man. I gotta finish getting into it. Like I said, I'm drinking on this thing because it's a good book, and y'all gotta get this thing as well. So you got Problem Child out, Back to Love, which is your brand new single, and then also you gotta check out his website to get those Terrell Carter hats and accessories. Now, before we go, Terrell, I'm gonna let you introduce your brand new single.
Yes, my brand new single, Back to Love. I'm so excited about this song. It's Back to Love. It gives you that 90s feel and that 2020 feel. But I wanted to give y'all something that, you know, people are expecting from me, but they don't expect me to always sing those up tempos or those mid tempos. It's always the ballads. So I want y'all to listen to this song. Love me. Go to Terrell Music on Instagram, Terrell Carter on Facebook, Terrell Music on TikTok, Twitter, all of the other ones. But tonight, I want y'all to listen to this song. It's called Back to Love. Thank you for having me.
Baby, I've been bullshitting. Yeah. I wanna stop playing big man. I wanna stop playing best I can. I know you never hear me say, oh, like the shit I put in Vegas. You think by now that I would know better. You think by now that I would do you better. Your mama told you I ain't never gonna change, but I'ma change, baby. I made a mess out of being your lover. I made a mess out of getting back to love. Back to love. And everything gonna be getting back to love. 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 Let me spend my cards one more time with you, baby. Wanna spend my dime and my time, call me crazy, but I'm giving up, getting back to love. You just ain't someone that I'm trying to fuck. Don't get me wrong, cause I love your body. I just wanna take you high. I made a mess out of being your lover. I made a mess out of getting back to love. Back to love. And everything gonna be getting back to love. 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 I wanna touch your body. I wanna take you high. I wanna take you back to love. Getting back to love.